Okay, we're back here in the JConcepts garage with our question and answer period here. We discussed on Facebook that we were going to do a question and answer here. We took some questions and we got quite a few questions here, so we'll go through. We might have to do this in two parts, but we'll start here on Facebook. Dalton Red asks, what's my definition of 1/10 scale racing, like carpet, dirt, and the type of tire wear we should expect? And I think honestly at this point my version of 1/10 scale off-road is on dirt, with the track having a good amount of traction. I don't know that it would be a treated track, maybe something like OCRC, where you're kind of in between, running a lower style pin tire, but something that still has tread on it. And then I would say my two favorites, I guess, would be the other condition we have here in Florida, which is outdoors when the sun comes out. And we have a lot of traction, and the track is hooked up and it's fast, and that's what I like about it. I like having a good amount of traction, where the cars are designed for now, and the tires, we can run a little lower tread, and you can go, turn really quick lap times. I like when that car feels really responsive, and it's a little, not quite edgy, but it's responsive to the driver. And I think that, to me, that condition here outdoors in Florida and OCRC type conditions, I say OCRC, but that kind of includes tracks that have, where you're running like a clay compound tire or golds, dirt webs where the tread's kind of low. I think that's kind of our new off-road. We got Tim Davis asks, when can we expect the release of a carpet tire? And when we talked about it a little bit earlier in another video, but we do have the Swaggers, the pin downs, set for release. I think we're coming probably towards the end of May. We're in production right now with them. We did several compound variations and a lot of testing. Did a lot of traveling and other drivers going out to other events too. And we should have something here at the end of May for release. The rears will come with inserts. The tiny fronts won't come with inserts. That's not standard, but the four-wheel front will come with inserts. So look out for those. And then we got Joshua asking, in the last 4 years, what would you say has made the most impact within the RC industry? Battery configuration, tires, etc. I guess lipo and brushless were before 4 years ago, but I'd still say that that's probably the biggest thing we've had in electric racing. From there, the fact that we're probably refining the way a two-wheel buggy works now. It used to be the motor was in the rear, and you kind of had that swing effect when you drove it. Now the cars are they're much more different in handling. They drive a little more direct. You have to be, you're not quite a whippy driver anymore. You have to drive a lot smoother and kind of more on the conservative of what we used to do. Before, the cars were a lot more set up to be where you could drive aggressively and the rear would swing around, and you kind of had the benefit of using that if the tracks were in different conditions. Now you kind of have to drive a certain way, and the aggression comes from how much traction you have. So I'd say before 4 years, you're talking about brushless and lipo. Now I think the car we've kind of evolved the two-wheel buggy cars and to the point where they're the best of the 10 scale off-road cars now. They handle the best. The speeds are almost as fast as four-wheel drive, and they're amazing. So, and then from there, I'd say the tires have made a pretty big impact because and the tires kind of go hand in hand with the track conditions at the time. If guys are preparing in a certain way, but now it seems like we're getting sort of we're seeing a lot more tracks using the same type of tires. So I think the conditions are stabilizing more, which I think is making the tires more important, because you have to have that one that always performs very well under those conditions. So the tires like the dirt webs before the barcodes, I think were kind of revolutionary tires to some extent because they married those track conditions at the time. Scooter Allison is asking, Is RC racing getting too sophisticated with technology? I don't really think so. I think we're kind of still in a point where it's not too sophisticated. I think I don't think it's to the point where people can't understand it or can't learn it. The part that gets concerning to me is if car manufacturers start developing cars too quickly, a la the touring car class where there's a new one every year. I don't think we want to see that in our off-road category. I think 2, 3, 4 year timeline on a two-wheel buggy has always been good. I mean, the B4 was around 10 years, but I don't think that's realistic. If you could say the 3-4 year period for the product cycle, I think that would keep the technology, or what we're calling technology, people could kind of grow with that. So I think our electronics are better than they ever have been, but I think they're also pretty easy to use. I don't know that once you know what you're doing that everybody can adjust them. It's really pretty user friendly from that standpoint, and I think when you still look at people's setups, you see the Cavalieri's and the Mayfields and these guys still use setups consistently from track to track. They'll use one that they like and they'll use it in multiple locations. So I still think that you can run these cars with a good setup on a multitude of conditions and still do pretty well. So I think from that standpoint, I don't think it's too sophisticated at this point. Ashley Pattison asks, is the B5M my favorite car? And it is. I think that's my favorite car of all time at this point. It used to be the B4. I thought that the B4 was amazing. I think there was a point in my driving where I thought, there was RC10, or for me, the RC10, the B2, the B3, the Losi XXX, and then onto the B4 and the B5. But I thought driving the B4, I thought that was the best car that I'd ever driven. But now that you run a mid-motor B5, it's definitely the best car that I've ever had. I enjoy driving it. It's been easy to work on and pretty easy to set up track to track. I don't do a lot of adjustments. I kind of run my car as I get there at our events and our Super Cups, and it's always treated me well. So it works well with our products and our tires, and I think it's definitely my favorite car. Ryan Matissa is asking, what is my favorite track or events? I think in terms of racing or driving, I like to do our Super Cup races and our Indoor National Series as a driver. I think the pressure is a little kind of low, and it's fun and it's low key. So those are fun events for me to drive at. I think the best events for me to watch are obviously, the Worlds and the Nationals, but I think what is a little underrated is some of these events like the Alabama's Manufacturer Shootout, the Psycho Nitro Blast. Obviously everyone talks about the Dirt Nitro Challenge or the Silver State, but I think I really enjoy going to Psycho Nitro. I like going to the Alabama Manufacturer Shootout. And of course, there's always Silver State Nitro Challenge. I think with the new location for the Silver State being at the RC tracks of Las Vegas, I think that's one of my favorite locations now for a 8-scale race. So I enjoyed that, and I think those are the races I look forward to the most. You can obviously throw the Reedy race in there. It's always really interesting. I think people get interested in the results of the invitational class, but I think the open class is sometimes some of the most competitive racing that there is at that event. And it could be said that the open class is almost even better than the invitational there, because it allows some people that are very good but not that elite level, and they're all battling for an event that it's really hard to tell year to year who's going to win it. So I think that's kind of where I'm going with those. Damon Borkowitz is asking, what's my favorite JConcepts tire? I'd say my two favorite is the Barcodes and the Dirt Webs. I think those are two tires that have definitely done the best for us over a period of time, and they're probably still my two favorite tires for 10 scale. I'd say in 8 scale, the hybrids have always been a really good tire, and now the Triple Ds and the Detox. So those tires, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Dirt Webs would be my all-time favorite, and then probably the Barcodes, and then the Triple Ds, Detox, Hybrid, and 8 scale. And Bubba Boggs is asking, what's the time span from a tire design to production? That could vary a ton, because you could spend months working on the design if you wanted to. If you didn't really know what you wanted, you could keep revising drawings, changing drawings, printing things out, looking at them, 3D prints, things of that nature we always do. So you could be working, that's kind of almost endless if you wanted to be. Sometimes you know more of what you want than others. I'd say realistically a couple months if you wanted to narrow it down a little bit. You can get even quicker than that. You could probably get as quick as under a month if you really knew what you were doing and knew what you wanted and had that capability. I think for us, we kind of shoot for somewhere in that range. The turnaround to production sometimes is different because multiple compounds. Sometimes you're dealing with fronts, rears, and it gets really complicated really quickly. And if you add 4 compounds into it, things get really kind of crazy. So, I think we shoot for a couple months in our from design to first trial and first samples. Sometimes you can push it, go under that if you're in a crunch. For us, going into production takes a little longer because of you're trying to build some stock or ones that you think are going to be popular. So that's kind of flexible. So somewhere in that area. We got Jeff Keaton. How does the industry decide when wheel and tire sizes should change? What he's indicating here is 2.2 versus 60 millimeter, or in 8 scale there was 80 millimeter to 83 millimeter. That's a tough one because I don't know that the industry decides that. I think what the manufacturers do is they look at the rules, and at the particular time we'll go with 8 scale first, which was 80 millimeters. I believe LOSI or TLR decided, they looked at the rules and they saw that the maximum was 83, so they went to 83 on their very first wheel, and everything else since then has been at that size, and the originals were 80, which kind of got left in the dust. The best thing about that is it didn't really affect the tires too much. You didn't have to change tire for that wheel size change, and we all just kind of adapted to it really quickly. In 10 scale with the 60 millimeter was completely different tire, completely different wheel. Was something that kind of hit the industry hard in 2013, 2014. But we're seeing that trend kind of tail off now. Some of the manufacturers are obsoleting those 60 millimeter styles, going back to the 2.2s exclusively. We still have both options. We have a couple good tires in 60 millimeter, and we have obviously a lot of good ones in 2.2. Personally, I like the 2.2s the best. I think it's standard. I think everything fit everything, and I thought that was the best for our class and our industry, and we didn't really need to change. And maybe that's what the customers are telling us now in terms of sales or people discontinuing some things. So I look for more 2.2s, and I look for 83 millimeter exclusively in 8 scale. Jeff Keaton is also asking, who do you think was the biggest influence behind the sudden change to the track conditions at this year's Worlds? What he's indicating is that we had a sealed chemical treated surface at the Silver State Nitro Challenge, and the industry kind of spoke out about that condition, and they didn't like it, and they changed to a wet water track for the Worlds itself. It's been yet to be run in 2016 on a wet track there. We're preparing for a Worlds warm-up there in several weeks where they'll run it wet. But according to the people that I've talked with, IFMAR has decided to let them water the track whenever they want, which was the original concern, which is why they were doing things a certain way. And I think, honestly, probably the biggest influence on that decision was probably Mark Pavitas. He made a video with Live RC, they asked him how he felt. He told them how he felt, and I don't think that was his intention, but he kind of made his feelings known that he didn't like it, and he wished it was different, and it traveled around on social media. People really saw that video, and people really kind of took hold of it, and I think the management and the track there, they made them reconsider how they were doing the conditions, and I think that was probably the single biggest thing. I don't think it was his intention, but I think that's what it ended up being, and it was a popular decision so far. If you look online, whether people that aren't going to be racing, which is always my contention, is that a lot of people that comment online aren't racing anymore, and they're old friends or old racers, and they're like, hey, let's race on a real dirt track, but they haven't been racing in 15 or 20 years, so they're still not racing. So, but anyway, it's been a popular decision, whether you're racing now or you raced 15 years ago. People seem to like the decision, so we'll go with it, and we'll do the best we can. We got Matt Stoltz is asking if I play any video games, and if so, what I like to play. I think the last 2 video games I played was, I don't know if this counts on your phone, the basketball game that was making rounds in the instant messenger, or the messenger on Facebook. That was pretty fun. And there was a monster truck game app that I had that was pretty fun. But I think that's really about it. I don't have any other video games, probably since the Mario Brothers days. I got Jordan Singletary. When you're deciding tire compounds for a race, what do you consider? What the track looks like. I always ask people for a picture when they ask me what tire should I run. I'm like, let me see a picture of the track. From there, you can tell about 75% of what you need to do. Then you look at what the temperature is going to be and what your weather is going to be. So if this is outdoors, you look at a picture. Is this prepared smooth? Is it prepared rough? Is it watered? Is it going to be dry? And you can tell a lot of that in the photos or by asking people. And that you can get probably 90% of the way there just by doing that. So that's a lot of preparations that we do as we look for pictures. We talk to some people, and then we go, okay, we know what we like to run on those conditions, and then we go for it. So get a picture. If you're looking at the track, look at the track, and then you determine the temperature, and then you can choose your compound based off of how much grip the track has. So we got a question here from Dirk Anderson. If I had a choice to race on carpet or dirt, what would it be on? I would race outdoors on dirt, but it would be hard packed, somewhat blue groove. That's my favorite condition to race on for me in Florida. So it'd be outdoors, dirt, somewhat blue groove with good traction, high speed. And from there, it's hard to say what I would like in second. I guess it would be that OCRC condition that we talked about, the indoor clay track. And then, carpet probably after that. I haven't completely raced on it so much. I've only raced once or twice. But it does have a lot of potential, and I can see why people like it, and I can see it does appeal to me. Dirk Anderson's also asking if I could go back in time and race against any RC legend. Who would it be? I think it's probably a 2-part thing. Would I have to race them with their equipment from those days, or would I be allowed to take my equipment back? I know I would like the dream scenario was, to me, would always be to go to the '89 Worlds or the 1991 Worlds with the equipment and the tires that we have today and try to give Masami a run. Of course, he'd have to run the old equipment, I'd run the new equipment, and see how I could do. Heads up, same equipment. I think it'd be fun to race Jay Halsey in his peak, in his prime, the World Championship that he won. You look at the track, and if knowing what I know now, but using their equipment, I'd like to give him a run. I'm sure he was a great guy to race against. I'm sure he was a serious competitor. I raced with him in the 90s, but that wasn't when he was at his prime. But he was still very, very good, and he was a good competitor. But I think he'd be fun to race against because of his style, and those days are probably kind of special. Chad Eubanks is asking who has the best tracks, the East Coast or the West Coast. I don't know if it comes down to coast as much as it comes down to dirt. If you have the indoor clay type conditions, a la the OCRC, the SDRCs, tracks like Trackside, Hobbies, these different tracks that have that really nice indoor clay. I've heard Trackside is dirt, not clay, but it still has the same kind of performance feel to the cars. And I think that in general, probably those are my favorite conditions in terms of having the best tracks and facilities. Is probably the OCRCs and those type of places. You're right in the middle of Southern California and you have a great RC track. It's a big building, it's a nice sized track. It's probably one of the better ones. There might be some that are a little better, there might be some that are a little bit worse, but they're all fun to race on. I've heard that when it comes down to just West Coast versus East Coast, I kind of like to, my favorite kind of racing, as I mentioned before, is outdoor 110 scale buggy racing. If I had to choose what would be my favorite, would be outside 110 scale buggy, blue groove track. We've made some videos on the Super Cup. That's the kind of racing I like to do. But it's not as common in these days. A lot more indoor tracks. So you got to give West Coast a lot of credit for their indoor tracks. They have great tracks out there. But there's also some here on the East Coast, and then we talked about Wisconsin and Trackside and all these other places we've been to. And I think that you kind of have to give a little edge to the West Coast, but the East Coast isn't that far behind. I think the West Coast might get a little bit of they get a little extra credit just because everyone thinks the fast guys are from California or Arizona, which they kind of are. But I think everyone gives them a little extra credit because of that. But we have some good stuff here on the East Coast, and I'm proud to be an East Coast racer in general, and I like our outdoor racing conditions. Alberto Garcia is asking, during big 1/8 scale events, there are several top drivers always using tire sauce. Which rule do you think is needed to discover these drivers and avoid the unfair advantage? I'm not really sure which drivers are always using tire sauce, but I think what's important in this is to realize that you just don't add tire sauce to your tires and you become a magical racer and driver. Otherwise, I could go win the Worlds at any time. It's just not like that. You don't just add tire sauce to your tires and you're an amazing racer. It takes a lot of everything for that to come together. I know this was a big problem at the Neo Buggy race, but I think they kind of got it in check this year to some extent by having some sauce police and things were checking. They were smelling, checking tires, feeling them, impounding tires, which I think is probably they made the best of what they could there. Ultimately, if you're really, really concerned about tire sauce, you have to have a controlled tire, and they have to be stored by a technical inspection during your brakes. They're only on your car during your qualifiers. They're pulled off by tech, put into your storage, and then they only get back on your car for racing. So I think that's the only true way to do it if you want it to be fair. Other than that, I think you need to have a saucing station and just allow to use tire sauce. I think it's only a factor indoors when we race indoors. Outdoors, not so much unless it's really loose or really cold. Normally, if it's hot and you're outdoors, you're not using tire sauce, and it's not an advantage. Indoors could be, but you also have to choose the right thing. So I say have a saucing station. The reason I like this is because you go to an event like the Reedy race where they have a sauce station, and you're up there saucing your tires with Ryan Mayfield, Ryan Cavallari, Jared Tebow, Ty Tessman, Dakota Fenn. All these guys are saucing their tires alongside each other, and I think it eases their mind that one's not having an advantage over another. So I think at a Neo Buggy, why not just have a saucing station and let people do it if they want? And I think what'll end up happening is you'll see whoever's the stronger driver up there saucing his tires, and in general, those guys will choose the same type of sauce and they'll stick together. And I think it'll be a lot easier to control and you don't have to point fingers. What I don't like about those events is drivers start pointing fingers at everybody that he's saucing. Oh, he picked up speed that round. Oh, he's slow. Now he's fast. And they start pointing fingers, and I think that makes it too difficult for the race organizers and the racers. So I think that, one, it's not magic to use tire sauce unless you know what you're doing. Two, I think that maybe a saucing station at these indoor events would help. And three, the only way to truly eliminate that type of activity is to have control tire, and they're in tech, and tires are only on your car when you're racing. So that makes it a really difficult race to have because you have to have a lot of management. And then at the end of the day, is it the same drivers anyway that are winning? And that's usually my estimation, is no matter how much effort you put into all this, it's still the same guys usually racing at the top. Whether how much you want to control them or not, they seem to always rise to the top, and the rest of it, makes it really difficult. Those are our Facebook questions that are directly on JConcepts Incorporated. We got 4 here on Instagram, and then we'll do a part 2 of this video. But on Instagram, we got, will we make a flat bill hat with some color in it? And I think the answer to that is yes. What we've been doing is researching what color hat that we'd really like to use. We're kind of happy with, we got to kind of have this black on black hat right now, black hat, black stitching. It's got a puffy logo. It looks really nice, doesn't stand out from afar, which is typically what you'd want as a sponsor, but in terms of good looks, I think it looks good. But I think what we'll do in the future is change the color of the hat, still use a similar thread in the puffy style, and you'll see it stick out a lot more, but I think the hat color should change. Guy here we got on Instagram, will you consider producing bodies, either of these bodies, pre-1997 Ford F-250 or 96 to 2004 Nissan Pathfinder? This pre-1997 Ford F-250 is a yes. In fact, we have a 1989 here on our bench. We're working on a 1993, and we will have a 1997. So we're going to have 3 bodies, 1997 or under. We do have a 1984. So we're really going to hit the Ford bodies pretty heavily because we're getting a lot of requests for those. So 70s, 80s, 90s, and today of the Fords are really popular. The Pathfinder, 96 to 2004, I'd say no. We have a couple Nissan bodies now, Titan. They don't really sell that well for us. They do okay in the short course stuff, but perhaps if we made it for a scaling or something like that, maybe it would take off more, but hasn't been the most successful for us, so I'd say no on the Pathfinder. Next question here is, what's the best loose track tires for the B4.2? There's 2 loose track conditions to me, is loose dirt with fluffy dirt, and then there's loose where you don't have any traction. To me, if you have a wet, loamy track, that's where the car is actually spitting rooster tails, I'd say the Goosebumps that we make for 2.0 buggy, really hard to beat in that condition. They look really cool, they're really aggressive, last a long time, and should work well. If you go a loose track, which to me is when you're racing and the track just it's either wet or hard packed and you just don't have a lot of grip, to me the double Ds and lately the hybrids rear tire has been working really well. Green compound. And then last on Instagram, what are plans for the future? I'd say more of the same what we've been doing. People ask us all the time if we're getting into cars and want to make cars, but we're not interested in that right now. We want to continue making the best tires we can, keep kind of revolutionizing our body line, and kind of branching out as we have and supporting some vintage and some monster truck, and kind of spreading the bodies around to where we can use some of our licensing in this manner, like we have on the Fords, the monster truck, and the RC10T. And then on the race cars, the S2, the finishers, the silencer, you're going to see more of that. And I think we're going to hit the 8 scales a little harder this year, 8 scale buggies. as the world starts approaching, so look for that. And I think you're just going to see more of the same, but a little more diversity. We're going to have racing, we're going to have vintage, we're going to have scaling, monster trucks, and that's kind of our range that we're comfortable in. So appreciate everybody with those questions on Facebook and Instagram. We got another part coming up to this question and answer period, but that's our part 1, and stay tuned for part 2.